Some of the stuff that I have to share with you tonight, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I'm going to label the start of it conflict, is one of the reasons why I think we have trouble in this small community. A lot of people think everything's just running real smooth and just as it could be in a small community, but let me be the first one to tell you that it's not. And I'll share some of this stuff. I basically talked about some of this stuff the other night at our forum, and I've listed three reasons why I'm running for this position. One of them is I've always voiced your opinion, not just mine. The second, I still believe there's work to do on our city budgets. I believe that we have a couple departments that are living really high, and these budgets can be brought down. And this relates to conflict also, because I'm not the only one that feels this way. If these budgets could be knocked down a little bit when we go to buy a new city hall or something like that, I don't think we would have the controversy that we're having today in this economy that we're having. A lot of people say the economy's on the return. I don't believe it is. I don't think we're going to see it return for several years yet. The other thing is communication. Since I've been elected mayor, this is my second-year term ending in December. I have had terrible communication with almost all of our department heads. The only one that does communicate well is our Public Works Director. Mr. Dave Rickardson does a fine job. If he wants to purchase something, he gets a hold of me and talks to me about it. We don't always agree on everything, just like everything else, but he at least communicates. Chief Schutte does not communicate very well. He's got better this past year. Chief Housingate doesn't communicate at all. I just want to share this kind of stuff because I think it's pertinent to the citizens of this community to know who's running this city. And it's not the mayor. When the mayor's position has changed drastically when our city administrator took over. I was part of that process. We thought we needed to have a city administrator, and I still do. But the city administrator has to work for you, the people, not just the departments. He does a fairly good job on the budgets, but I still say our city administrator can work a little bit harder on getting these things trimmed down. The first year that he was here, he did have that effect, and was against hiring the first police officer that we hired after Mr. Runge had left. But the council did not listen to that decision. The council went ahead and hired one anyway. Since then, we've had two more at it. One of the other things that I think is really pertinent to share with you people to know how I've been treated as a mayor is back in November of 2011 when I was elected as mayor. Police and Fire Bargaining Unit called for negotiations to begin 8 months ahead of the end of that fiscal year, which would have ended in June, the end of June that next year after I'd have been mayor. They had set up, my predecessor agreed to this. They had several meetings. None of the negotiations was talked to about any of the council members, to my recollection. And I was a council member at that time, so I know I was not talked to about what was being negotiated, what was going on. And in the prior negotiations 2 years before that, every council member was told what was being negotiated and what was going on. The mayor selects this committee. The city administrator, the city attorney, 2 members from the council, 1 member of which was a volunteer firefighter at one time. Conflict. The mayor himself was on the police department. Conflict. Right there was your committee. I feel myself, this is the reason why these negotiations were slammed through before I took office in January 1. And I don't feel it is fair to you, the taxpayers, that elected me to that position. Also, in them negotiations, another year was added to their contract. They used to be 2-year contracts. They added a 3rd year to that contract, so if I wasn't elected the next term, I wouldn't be involved in the negotiations this November like they did, or tried to pull, and I wouldn't have done that, to tell you the truth. This is why the city has conflict. I'm not the only one that knows about this. If anybody reads the paper, they know what happens in these meetings. But under closed doors with negotiations, they don't know. And that's why I'm sharing this with you. One other thing, while we're on this same subject. When our third police officer was hired, this was real hurtful to me. I got my agenda papers on a Friday. I looked at my agenda, hire a new police officer, Shane Nixon. I don't have a problem with hiring another police officer. That Monday, I called Chief Housingay. Our meeting would have been on Tuesday. I said, would you please take this off the agenda so I could sit down and talk to you man to man like a mayor should with his city, representing you folks. He says, okay. An hour later he called me back and he says, I just got done talking with your city administrator. He says, I don't have to take it off the agenda. I says, what? He says, he told me I don't have to take it off the agenda. I says, okay, that's fine. That's how your mayor's getting treated. That's part of it. I won't go into depth with all of it, but here's another word I want you to stick in the back of your head. Disrespect. I called 2 mayors in surrounding cities and asked them how their negotiations and stuff had went on, had taken place in their city and still are today. They were shocked as to what I just got done telling you. They thought it was very disrespectful also. This is one of the biggest reasons I am running again, because I want to get this under control and get this stopped. But I have to have a council to work with. I can't do it myself. The other thing I have, and I think it's pertinent to all of our elections that we've had in the past, and this is not to be disrespecting anybody else, but on our councils in the past and right now, we have firefighters, we have retired policemen, and it's not to disrespect them, but to me, myself, this is my own opinion, is conflict. If anything is to be voted on for the fire department, the police department, and you can go back and look through all the records, there was never one vote no on anything they've ever went for, and this is in my 8 years that I've spent on this council and mayor. And if you don't believe me, you can go back through the records and check it. That again is conflict. Is it against the law for a firefighter or a policeman to have a position? No, it is not. We have smart, we have intelligent people on this council and previous councils. But it's bias, and it is still conflict of interest when we have stuff that needs to go forward in this city. Yeah. This is one of the reasons that I am up here talking to you today. And I'm talking to you from my heart, because I care what happens in this city. And I will continue to, even if I do lose this election. One of the other things I have, and it's not just picking on the police department, it's things that are happening around you. I mentioned this the other night in the forum. All of you remember all of our policemen. Mr. Varner was one of them. Mr. Varner was a very respectful officer. When you went by him in the day, you waved, he waved back. Any of the other officers would do the same thing. They all waved. Everybody was on a good relationship. Now that we have 8 officers, several of them don't live in this community, we've lost that. We've lost that part of, what do I want to say, being nice to people. I mean, whatever happened to that? Why did Camanche lose that? This is another reason. I want to bring this back to Camanche. I want everybody to be on the same page. Sure, we have people that do bad. We had people that did bad back then, and I was probably one of them. But they still waved at me. I mean, that means a lot to me. And I'm sure it means a lot to you. Some of the officers that live here in town, they do wave to you. But I can think of 2 or 3 that constantly, no matter how many times you drive by in their squad car or whatever, they don't even look at you. I just like to bring that back to this city to where everybody has respect. Respect for them, respect for the people that pay their wages. That tax revenue goes to their paycheck every week. And I wish that they would remember that. To be moving on to a positive note. This is one of the things that I want to accomplish on this 2-year term if I am elected. We've done a lot of work on the main arteries of our city. Washington Boulevard, sure, we had some flaws, but our hands were tied. They were all up to DOT specs. There was nothing we could make them do different. We tried, believe me. But we got accused of other words. Now that we've had some of these outskirts, 9th Avenue, 9th Street reconstructed, I consider them main arteries. Now I'd like to come up with talking to our Public Works Director and maybe set up a committee about starting on the inside streets of our community, the inner lane streets. Maybe a 5-year program, something similar to what Clinton's doing right now. And I firmly believe that we can take a little bit of money out of each one of these departments and have it put into our road use fund, because that's where our matches went from these grants. It come out of our road use fund. Our road use fund is getting close to being depleted right now, coming up for this next oncoming year. But we can set the stage for that in our budget. And I believe by a 5-year plan that we can get most of these streets fixed on the inside of this town, which you all, I'm sure, are in favor. A lot of them need it. And that's one of my main goals to do if I am elected. I'd like to thank you tonight, and I'd like to wish Mr. Willis good luck in the election and the other candidates also. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I got a couple of questions for you, if you take the question.
Sure.
On the communication aspect of it, you kind of indicated that nobody communicates with you yet. There were times that you called me and asked me.
You do, I apologize for that. You do communicate.
I'd let you know everything that went on.
You did, you
Okay,
did,
so-
and I apologize for saying everybody. You are one of the few.
Okay.
And I do apologize for that, because he does call, and I do call him on occasions.
And I don't mind filling in when I have to. I'm available because I'm retired.
Right, and I apologize for that, Paul, because I didn't,
Okay.
I scanned right over that, but yes, you do communicate.
Okay, also too, I had a question on the contracts. I started the PERB unit in this town, the union.
Right.
And I know from experience that a 3-year contract is easier, especially in these unsure times, to look forward in order to budget monies that you may need in order to meet the commitments. So we've had 3-year contracts before.
But I understand that, but since I've been here, there hasn't been. I've been in on this for 8 years.
Okay.
6 years as council, 2 years as mayor, and I've never seen a 3-year contract.
When was your first year being elected?
8 years ago.
8 years. Okay, so I actually became, because our first contract as a PERB president was 3 years. So We've done it in the past.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have. I got the last 3 negotiations. I got copies of all of them if anybody wants to ever look at them, by the way.
And then one more thing here, I guess I have got to take exception to that police officers and firefighters, it being a conflict of us being on it. First of all, I pay the same taxes you do.
I'm not arguing that.
And believe
Paul.
me, there are stuff that the police department and the fire department have wanted that I said, no way. There's absolutely no way you can think of that. And you also have to admit.
But it was never brought up in a meeting.
But it never got that far because it was already said no to. It ain't gonna happen.
And that was communication with you, but not with everyone else.
And also too, there's been many times you have to admit to where I have abstained. I haven't voted on things.
Well, because you can't by law.
Well, and there were things that I also wasn't the right thing to do, period. But I just take exception to that because I tell you right now, you're intelligent, everybody in this room is intelligent, but I know that fire department better than you do. I also know that.
Oh, I'm sure you do, because they don't communicate with me.
But I was there for many years, both of them.
You were a
So I
firefighter.
do kind of take exception to that it's not a conflict, and I've got every right to hold a position as much as anybody else.
Yep, you do, and I'm not arguing that point. But I'm saying, as a community, from what I'm hearing when I talk to the people that are coming up to this election, this is part of the problem, is how they feel. I'm expressing their concerns as well as mine. And like I said, it's not for no disrespect. The police department and the fire department, we have to have them. They're great at what they do, but we didn't choose their professions either. And every community has to have it. I'm just stating the facts as to what I'm being told and communicating with the people.
Anytime somebody wants to address that, I'll be more than happy to talk with them. And I mean, no shouting match, no nothing like that. I'd just like to have them explain to me how I don't have the same rights that they do merely because of my profession, my ex-profession.
Right.
And as far as the police and the fire department being on the negotiating committee, I've never done that. I've never been part of that.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying about that is, do you think it's fair to have a volunteer fireman on the negotiating committee for police and fire bargaining unit? Just a straight up question.
I don't have a problem with that. I
It's
don't.
going to happen because that person is a citizen. As long
Right.
as he's a citizen of Camanche, it's going to happen.
Right. And
How
I
about full-time?
understand that.
Even full-time.
How about a full-time fireman that was part-time here in Camanche that voted on the contract? That was Harry Cosette. He voted on that contract
Yes,
for the
he did.
police and fire.
Yes, you did. But it's
And,
not against the law, Charlie. I've checked into it through the ethics board out of Des Moines will tell you the same thing. There's no law stating if they don't feel comfortable voting on it, that's fine.
It's not
But
against the law, it's just highly unethical.
it's highly unethical. That's, and I guess basically that's where I'm
But
trying
you can't deny them the right and the freedom that you want for yourself,
No.
just because they're a profession. I mean, that's
to.
prejudicial.
I'm not
It's a
denying them, I'm
conflict of
just telling you the
But that's
facts.
prejudicial. It's just like, hey, you can't vote on it. 'cause
Mr.
you're wrong.
Willis, would you like to have the table?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't come prepared with a speech or anything of that nature. What I would like to do is I would like to tell you how I perceive the mayor's position as a leadership role in this community. And I was hoping not to get into all this, but I'm going to have to rebut some of Kenny's points. First of all, as the mayor, you are the face of this community. You are a leader. And as a leader, you should try to affect change by working with your council. That's what you do as mayor. You try to affect change by creating a vision and convincing your council why your vision is the best way for the community. That's, to me, what a leadership position is. In order to be a leader, you have to be a very effective communicator. Kenny brought up communications. But communications is not a one-way street, because I've contacted all of the department heads and all of the current council members, and I know for a fact Kenny has not called me since May. So how can you affect change by not trying to work with the people you need to work with? The communication thing is a two-way street. you think you're getting bad communication, but on the other end of it, you're not communicating well yourself. I need to rebut the point that the whole thing with the police officers waving. You think that because they live out of town, they don't care, so they don't wave? Is that what I'm
No,
understanding?
they don't have respect for the community is what I'm saying.
That would be like me saying to you, Kenny, you don't pay property tax, so you don't have respect for the taxpayers' money.
I pay property tax.
You don't rent?
Yeah, I do. And part of that lease goes to property taxes
sure it does.
every single year. And
I'm sure it does.
if I don't keep the taxes low in this community, my rent's gonna raise, and
That's
my lease
correct.
is gonna raise.
That's correct.
And that's one of your standpoints that you've spread around town.
It's the same type of analogy, Kenny, is all I'm trying to do. That's all I'm trying to say.
It's a different analogy. It's not the same analogy. And I'm not gonna get into an argument
I'm not
or
either, and
or
right.
a bitching match.
Nope.
I'm here to talk to the people, to let them know how things have went on these last 2 years, and I'm gonna leave it at
All
that.
right, well, since I have the floor, let me continue by saying that as a leader, as the mayor of a town, what I would do is try to exude the positive. Are there problems within the city? Absolutely. There are problems within every city. Do they need to be taken care of? Yes, I agree that they do. Some of us disagree on to what extent, but that's going to happen as well. You need to be positive, be proud, and especially in public forums. You don't, as a mayor, I'm not going to go and throw the department heads and the city administrator under the bus. That's not what you do as a leader. Leaders simply do not act in that manner. And that's where I think we're lacking leadership in the mayor's position right now. That's why I'm running for mayor. I think that the communication breakdown is on both sides. I think that, like I said, Kenny, you have not called me since May. I've talked to the other council members.
What issues have you put on the table to talk about?
What issues do you have?
What issues
If it's
have
your
you brought
vision for
up?
the city, you affect change by convincing me why your way is the best. That's what leaders do, Kenny.
Look at that administrative.
Can I finish?
I'm just answering your question and you're not letting me.
I didn't ask a question.
You did?
You asked me a question and I rebutted with another question.
Okay, go ahead, go forward.
I'll take questions because that's all. I'm not
The
going to get
mayor's
into.
position has changed, Trevor. If you
The
look
mayor's,
at that.
but you still have to act as a leader, Kenny, and
Yes,
you
you
affect
do.
change by working with the people who make the policy. That's what you do. And you don't contact any of the council members, so how can you affect change?
I talked with Paul and I talked with Linda, and I used to talk with Gary all the time until Gary turned
You
his
don't
back
talk, I
down.
talked to Linda today, you don't talk with Linda.
Well, you're wrong.
If there's communication problems with department heads, why doesn't the city write an SOP for department heads? And these are the rules, follow them or empty your desk.
In a town of 4,400 people, why can't the mayor approach the department heads, which he does not either?
And I
spoke to all
have,
the-
no, you're totally wrong with that, Trevor. I've
I
approached
spoke
all
with
of
them
them.
all today.
I don't care whether you spoke to them all today or not. I've spoke with each one of
So
them on
I'm sitting here
communication.
lying on their behalf.
Evidently you are.
My thought is whoever is going to be mayor, if you see the same things that Kenny's talking about, if you become the mayor, then maybe we need to have like an SOP that's written up for department heads.
And I agree with that, but our city administrator is supposed to take this in control himself. The city administrator is their boss now. The mayor is not their boss.
Who's the city administrator?
Tom Rose. Tom Rose, when,
The city council, the city council.
Well, then.
there
The
you
city
go.
council is the ultimate authority.
Too.
Charlie, yes, you.
Yeah, you said that, at the forum, that you did not have an agenda, but you did say here just recently that there is challenges for this community. And what challenges are those that you see, and how would you deal with them?
The challenges are the same as they are in every community in any year.
No, I want specifics.
The challenges are rising costs, Charlie. We all know that. We have to deal with that on a daily basis. We have to deal with rising costs and still try to provide services. It's a balancing act, really. It really is. When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's a balancing act. We have to take the tax revenues that we have, We try to keep them low. I've given you the tax numbers. You choose not to believe them. I have another set of numbers on the table as well that I'll spew a few out to you.
I've seen those.
I've heard you speak of our outrageous taxes.
That's correct.
And this is from the Iowa Department of Municipalities website. And I don't know where Bill got his information for the forum, but of all the 948 cities in the state, of all the cities, Camanche ranks in the 54th percentile. Now, all cities over 1,000 people were in the 27th percentile. All cities over 2,000 people were in the 12th percentile, and all cities over 3,000 people were in the 9th percentile. We are one of the lowest taxed cities in this state per $1,000 valuation.
Well, that's not correct.
That is correct.
Let me, before you dispute my information, it's on the newsletter that was put out by the city council and city administrator.
No, this is
Now, wait a minute.
not.
Now, wait a minute. Now, they said Eldridge was a 6.99, all right? How is it that Eldridge has a 6.99 when Camanche is 11.99?
Eldridge has a ton of industry, Charlie,
Well,
and
there
that's
you
what
go.
their tax base comes from. They don't have to charge the property tax to the residential that we do. We are not an industrial community.
Don't you think it's advantageous for a community that has 2 railroads, river transportation, and other hard assets,
Yep.
where you can lower the tax base and bring in industry,
I agree,
like
Charlie.
manufacturing?
Hey, you don't have, as a member of the council, I worked with Clinton Regional Development. I was in on the meetings with the UP trying to get access to their main line. So I know all about the logistical advantages of our location, believe me. We have tried to get industry in here. We have basically really one spot.
Well,
And it's like pulling
you know,
teeth trying to get something
industry's going to
done.
move in a direction where there is lower taxes, not where there's higher taxes.
Absolutely.
And it's the same way with people moving into a community. If there's a lower tax base, you're going to attract people. When you expand that tax base, then you can have the services that we spent money for that we cannot provide because of a lower population.
What can't we provide, Charlie?
Well, I'm saying that the services that we have is expensive, okay? I'm
All
talking
services are expensive. We can cut taxes all day long, but you're gonna lose a good or a service as a result. That's the only way to do it. That's the only
That's true,
way.
and that's something that should be looked at.
I heard everybody at that forum, to a man, said, oh, we have a great fire department, we have a great police department, and we need to be safe, but yet we need to start cutting the jobs.
Nobody
You
said
can't
anything
have it
about
both
cutting.
ways.
Nobody said anything about cutting jobs.
No one said nothing about cutting jobs. Never
What
mind.
are you cutting? Then what are you
One
cutting?
person said
What are you cutting?
Nobody
You gotta
said
get into the
anything
benefits
about cutting
package.
jobs.
That's where the
We was
money's all
talking
at.
about budgets.
That has started, and that's true, and we've looked at, and I've talked with Roth, and I think probably you, about different things within the budgets that, you know, the fire department now has pretty much all new equipment. Some of those funds could possibly be allocated in other areas.
Nobody
to
gets free
offset
health
that
that's what I'm
insurance in this
saying.
country anymore.
What's that?
Nobody gets free health care insurance in this country anymore. It's